And welcome back to another Junior Developer Happy Hour. I'm Brady. I'm one of the co-hosts, and Sam and I started this meetup we're closing in on a year ago, trying to just find a way to help people who are getting into the tech industry, people who are interested in becoming developers. So I know a lot of people who are self-taught or went to boot camps or even going through computer science programs have a bunch of questions, and we are an AMA, so you can ask us all of the questions about getting your first job in tech. The way it works is here. I'm gonna drop the Slido link again.
I just posted it.
Thank you. Sam just posted the Slido link. That is the best place to ask us the questions that people can upvote, and we can make sure that we're getting to the questions that the most people are interested in hearing. And then if there are other questions that are maybe follow-up questions to what we're talking to in the moment, or if there are resources that we're mentioning, those can get dropped into the Zoom chat itself. And then the only other thing I think to say is that if you're able to stay until the very end, that's when we'll stop recording. People can come off mute and we can have more of as natural of a conversation as is possible over Zoom. So we look forward to meeting people then if you're able to stay. Yeah, like I said, I'm Brady. I work at Nordstrom Trunk Club, and I am a full stack engineer there. I've really been focusing more on front end the past year and a half or so. And I went to Dev Bootcamp in 2017 and actually got hired on at Trunk Club, which then got really fully absorbed into Nordstrom recently. So that's my backstory. I'll let Sam say some words now too.
If I can find the unmute button. Hey everybody, I'm Sam. I just started a new job this week at a company called Strike. Um, it's pretty early stage startup, completely remote. They don't even have an office, I think. So yeah, it's been pretty fun. It's fun going back to work for a smaller startup because I previously worked at Lyft. Um, before I moved to Tulsa. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma now. Just moved here in the beginning of February. I was in the Bay Area previously. But yeah, I moved to Tulsa for the Tulsa Remote Program. I'm also in that program. They pay you $10,000 to move to Tulsa. If anyone's interested, you can go there. You can come in our Slack if you have any questions about that or just hang out. um, yeah, we got more announcements later, but let's get to our guest. We got Rahat here. He's got all kinds of stuff on his bio. So if you could maybe give us an intro from everything, like what boot camp you went to. I think you're like a teaching assistant at a boot camp now. You work at American Express and started your own startup. Like, give us an intro on everything.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Rahat. I'm a software engineer. My day job is at American Express. I'm mainly doing a lot of front end stuff. If you all saw like the Junior Developer Happy Hour with Nicholas Vitale, he's on my team. Um, and yeah, I mean, um, I've been at American Express for like, it's about to be 2 years now. 2 years ago, I was looking for, my first developer job. I had come off from completing the Trilogy Bootcamp. They have like different college campuses around the country. And about 3 months after completing that is when I got into American Express. A lot of that is just from like networking, doing stuff at conferences, meetups, stuff like this. And yeah, right now, other than the work at American Express, I've been on parental leave, hanging out with my daughter. That's about to end, but I've been doing some teaching at the boot camp that I graduated from. So I'm a teaching assistant there. So it's like a lot of full stack stuff, been helping a bunch of newer developers learn about React and all that. And I'm also starting my own company. It's called Whimser. It's a company in the mental health space. We're trying to make therapy a little bit more accessible for folks, as well as introducing different like self-help type of stuff through our app. And yeah, we're hoping to have a beta out very soon. So that's pretty exciting. And yeah, I'm happy to go over any questions on like getting the first job stuff I learned on the first job and starting a company and all that.
Yeah, sounds like you're super busy. How do you manage your time between all your different things you got going on?
So I had more things I was doing, and then I realized like, um, so I go around to like different tech conferences and stuff, and like do talks on like mental health and things like that. And I realized I wasn't like following my own advice, and taking like a bunch of work on top of me that I didn't really have time for. So once I decided to listen to myself, I started like removing a bunch of things that were not, I guess, as important. Um, it's been helpful that I guess, I've been on parental leave for the past few months. Got to spend some time with my daughter, as well as like have some extra time to like put in towards my startup. Um, and the teaching thing is really just like a part-time thing I do at nights and weekends. Um, so that's actually going to be ending soon. So that'll free up some more time. Um, I think the way I kind of like have been structuring things is like I'll have like a couple 2 or 3 days a week where I dedicate a few hours to like working on my startup, working on different things, different features for it. A couple of days I dedicate towards video games and family, and yeah, just like having a sort of like variety of things that I can do just to not be burnt out or stuck inside of like one single thing has been pretty helpful.
And how did you decide to go to Trilogy?
So I was looking around at the time for different boot camps, and my friend had actually sent me that one. Like at the time I was finding it a little bit difficult to find like a part-time boot camp because I needed to keep my job. And that one like worked very, very well with my schedule. So that was the main factor. And just like I guess the colleges that they were associated with looked pretty good too. So I thought, that would look good overall for my career. And that was kind of my decision for actually going into that. It was like between that and I think like Flatiron and a couple other ones. I ended up choosing Trilogy just because um, the scheduling that they had just worked with my full-time job a little bit better.
Cool. Yeah. Schedule is an important part to fit into the equation. So that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I think we can get started. We've got our first question here. How can you set yourself apart in the job search market as a developer as you're getting more or so that you get more interviews and offers?
Yeah. So over the past couple of months, I've actually been interviewing for different positions myself, just kind of looking at, other stuff that's out there. And a few of the things that like really helped me, um, number one being like kind of like building or learning and sharing in public. So I'm super active on like both mainly on Twitter, a little bit on LinkedIn, but Twitter is where I've actually gotten most of my job referrals from. And just sharing the stuff that I've been doing, working on my startup with, or just like random other things that I learn or work on. I write blog posts on like if I learn a specific like thing, whether it's in JavaScript and React or whatever it is, and share that out with my network as well. What's been really helpful with that is because like when you're learning different things and you're documenting it as you go along, you get a lot of attention from people who are, just looking like sort of like connected in those areas, like on tech Twitter. Um, People have seen like some of the content I've put out, have seen some of the um, blog posts and things I've been working on in my startup. And when they realize that they have, like an opening, at their job, and like I reach out to them about it or whatever, they're pretty happy to like give me a referral or like, just like vouch for me a little bit at their company because they've already seen the stuff that I can do. So there's like a little bit of like that social proof, I guess, of like, yeah, I'm a developer. I know what I'm doing. You can see all the stuff that I've been doing. Like having a profile, a portfolio is pretty good. But the thing is, nowadays, I feel like almost every single person who comes out of a bootcamp probably has a portfolio that looks more or less the same as yours does. Mine definitely did. Um, like most of the people in my bootcamp when we graduated, we had like the same design, the same like projects, the same, kind of stuff that we were all kind of working on in the bootcamp. So having like going the extra mile to do stuff like that in public is like what's been really helpful for me in getting different interviews. Like I've interviewed like in the past month, maybe at like 8 different places. And these were all, I didn't apply for any of those jobs. Those were all referrals. Those were all from stuff like just me sharing things on both LinkedIn and Twitter, networking, talking to people, asking around like, hey, does anyone know of like, people hiring in different jobs? I'd love to interview on Twitter. I think like a month and a half ago, I put out a tweet like that. And I feel like it went semi-viral because it had like thousands of retweets and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And I don't really have that big of a following, but like as long as you're sort of like interacting in those different spaces, like I guess I'll just explain like for Twitter, what I do is like there's different online Twitter tech conversations that happen a lot. If you've heard of like Code Newbie, they do stuff every Wednesday of like different questions they ask about tech. I interact with people there. I interact with answer some of those questions. Dev.2 has one too that they do on Tuesdays. And like I try to interact with people who do like podcasts and other blog posts, just in that sort of space as well. And just from those interactions, just by like helping people out, that's where I've gotten most of my opportunities from. And just like, yeah, I feel like, a lot of people say that networking has gotten harder because of the pandemic. I think it's just, you just have to look in different places now to like figure that out sort of.
I pretty much took the same approach you took. Like my whole career, I've been the same way. I just interact with people. Um, it's just genuine interactions. I don't have like a spreadsheet saying I need to contact 5 people today. I just hang out on the internet and talk to
Yep.
people. So yeah, can you share your Twitter when you get a chance?
Yeah,
And
I'll drop that in here.
and also you mentioned like Code Newbie, Dev2. I think Career Karma has like chats every day now. They made some kind of clubhouse thing in their app, I think. I didn't try it out. I just see Ruben Harris posting about it. Ruben Harris I think he's the CEO of Career Karma. So like for me, I follow all the companies and CEOs of everything that I think is interesting. So that's kind of how, like, one way you can like, if you don't have, like, if you're new to Twitter or even LinkedIn, you don't have that many connections yet. That's one way to start. Just follow all the companies you like, every company that sounds interesting to you, every CEO at that company, CTO. I follow like all the like the like people higher up at the companies that I like.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I first started, I just like looked at like different hashtags. Like I just looked up like JavaScript or like 100 Days of Code or Code Newbies and all that stuff. And I just like looked at the people that were like interacting in those and just started like following them, trying to like interact with stuff that they were sharing. I think like one of the biggest things with networking is like a lot of people kind of look at it as like, okay, what's the fastest way that I can like make a relationship with somebody and like get some benefit off of it. I think that's like the wrong way to kind of go about it. It's more like, how can I like learn from this person? How can I interact with you? Just like start a friendship or something. And that's going to be more likely to actually, be helpful for you in the long run. It might be a little slower, but the benefits in the long run are really outweigh just like going in really quickly just to like grab a job referral or something like that.
Yeah, I think it works better because it's just natural. Like you're
Yeah.
just developing relationships natural. It's not like some fake like growth hack. Like, and so yeah, I always try to recommend people just have patience. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to build your skills. Um, so if you try and rush it, you usually get frustrated, I think.
Yeah. I think it's also just frustrating for like the people because like especially folks who are like just like pretty active in like the tech scene on Twitter. I can pretty much guarantee you a lot of people are probably reaching out to them for referrals or like advice and stuff like that. So I think like the more you're willing to just like a lot of these, I guess, influencers or whatever you call them, um, when they're like posting different things about blog posts or like JavaScript things, you'll find like a lot of people asking questions on those tweets. Um, and like they can't get to all of them. Like try to step in and see if, like if you know some of those, answers, try to answer the questions that people have about certain things. And that'll like quickly get you just like talking to other people who are like sort of in the same sort of boat as you are and growing your network a little bit that way. And like the people who are posting it will also kind of notice that like, oh, this guy's pretty helpful, or this person's pretty helpful. Like um I have had a couple of people like follow me off of like doing stuff like that and made connections that way as well. um I think, and I know probably like a lot of people like stress a lot about LinkedIn and stuff. Like LinkedIn I've used, it's been pretty helpful, but like I would attribute most of my career to Twitter.
Yeah, me too. I attribute a lot of things in life to Twitter. I always say Twitter is my cheat code. Okay, Brady, we
All
got some questions
right.
lining up now.
Yeah, I see the next one here is wondering, are data structures and algorithms entirely critical to finding opportunities?
So it depends. There are a lot of companies out there now who um, will not, put a lot of emphasis on data structures and algorithms. I think companies in general are getting a little bit better about that. Um, like a good chunk of the interviews I've had over the past month, I didn't really have to answer too many data structure and algo questions, and I enjoyed that quite a bit, not having to do that. But I would say try to like do some research into the companies that you're applying to that you're interested in. Look on places like Glassdoor, and you'll be able to tell a little bit on like what their interview process is like and what you have to sort of prepare. That doesn't work too well for like smaller startups, but like mid-sized to like bigger companies are pretty much all on Glassdoor, and you'll be able to find like people who talk about the interview, who talk about the type of questions they're asked, and depending on like your job, where you are, where you're applying in your job market, and the type of companies you're applying to, like do a little bit of research on like what they actually care about, and that should tell you whether you should like focus on data structures and algorithms or not. um, it's still definitely something you should probably practice, just because more often than not they'll come up in the interview process. As much as I don't agree with them, they're just a thing that's there. um, and that's unfortunately the reality of it. So um, I tried to prepare like just by having like a basic understanding of like some of the easier algos, as well as like some like, I guess, medium-ish difficulty ones. Um, what I found is like as long as you're kind of like talking through things when you're working on like a data structure and algorithm question in an interview, and kind of just like thinking through things logically, telling the interviewer what your thoughts are, how you would tackle something, that's usually a lot more important than actually solving the problem. um, Sometimes they don't even expect you to solve the problem because they might be like, not, you might just not have enough time on the interview to even do it. They just really want to see how you think through things, how you would tackle a problem, what it would be like to work with you, and to like brainstorm different ideas for tackling different problems with you. So I think really one of the big things that people don't focus on, I think, in preparing for interviews is just the communication part. Just like being able to tell people how you're thinking through things, how you would tackle a problem, how you would, work with them, things like that.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's the most important thing in the interview too. Communication. From when I interviewed people, that was like, that really stood out to me when I interviewed somebody who communicated like really well, like what they were thinking. I knew what they were doing the whole time, or like what they were like planning to do.
And that's
So
really hard,
Yeah,
it's like it's one thing to practice your thought process and working through problems, but then it's a totally different skill to make the thought process come out of your mouth. So
yeah, it
it's good to
just takes a
practice
lot of
that.
practice. So it's good to practice the interviews, but it's also good to learn data structures and algorithms, at least the basics, like manipulating strings and arrays. I think I bring that up a lot because those skills are really helpful for your job. It's not just for for interviews. You'll be able to build better things if you have a solid understanding of just the basic data structures, like when to use a set and hash table, and how to all different kinds of things you can do with arrays and string manipulation and stuff like that. Because even me, I don't get it too much in interviews. Like at Strike, I didn't have any algorithms and data structures in my interview that I did with them. They just told me to build something, and I built it, and then we talked about it, and that was my interview. And it wasn't live. They sent me a project to do and told me to send them the finished project in a couple of days. And then they liked it, so they scheduled an interview to talk to me about what I built. And they didn't have any questions about any data structures and algorithms. So it just, yeah, you have to do your research if you're practicing data structures and algorithms for interviews. I think it mostly comes up with like FANG kind of companies, or if it's a smaller startup, I've rarely had it. It's more if the startup, if it was started by people who came from FANG companies, you're more likely they copied the process from those companies. But if it's just entrepreneurs starting their first startup who never worked at other tech companies, they don't even know how to interview people. In my experience, sometimes it was just like going to lunch with them, or as long as they like you and they think you might be able to build a thing, you can get into the company. So yeah, just in my experience, not all companies are like that, but that's what I experienced.
Sam, did you experience that the first couple of jobs, in case people don't know your story here?
Yeah, my first couple of jobs, I didn't even have technical interviews. It's just pretty much somebody else just told them I could do it, and then they just said, okay. They're like, this Travis said you can do it. Show up to the meeting on Monday. Or they're like, Austin said he recommended you to join the startup. Let's have lunch. See if we get along, and if they think I might be a good fit to like work with them. Those were my first couple gigs. I didn't do technical interviews at those companies. It was referrals, like Rahat was saying.
All right, then. Yeah, so then just to underscore, like, at least the past couple of months have been really, really tricky. Like the whole job market has been crazy, but if you've been building relationships and practicing building things, then hopefully in the next couple of months, it can pay off. But moving on. This next
one
question.
more thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that it doesn't work. You can get really good at data structures and algorithms and use that to get a lot of offers from companies. Like If people never saw our episode with our meetup with Stephen Inoue, he went ham on data structures and algorithms, and now he works at Google, and he didn't know how to code like 3 years ago. So yeah, you can take many different approaches. You just gotta kind of find out and see what works for you.
Great. All right. So next question. This person is doing a boot camp as well. They're wondering, how do I go about presenting myself in a job market without having a college degree?
Yeah. So in those cases, like I feel like a lot of the approaches that I've taken have been pretty helpful, because I've, me coming from a bootcamp grad and like transitioning careers and all that, I felt like I had to sort of like do a little bit extra and kind of like put myself out there a little bit more. So like the stuff I was mentioning before of like, in public trying to share things, definitely almost like applies even more in a case where you might not, have a degree, or maybe you're self-taught or whatever. And the more like, I guess, proof or whatever you can like bring into the space, the better I think your chances would probably be. I've also recently seen a bunch of people do stuff like um, indie hacking, where they're just like take an idea and like try to build like a whole SaaS sort of like in public, like on Twitter, and like document like a lot of the things they're doing along the way. And I've seen people get job offers just from like sharing that type of thing. And a lot of them don't have degrees. And there's a lot of companies out there that won't really care if you have one or not, as long as you can do the job. Um, Generally, who actually cares is HR. Um, and a lot of the listings that you might see that college degree required, and I'm not saying they won't always require it, but there are plenty of companies who just have that up there, but like they don't really care about it. um, there are companies that do, but the best thing to do is really just like try to have a good diverse portfolio of work. um, Look at the company that you're applying for, try to you know have some type of like small mini project that is like related to their work or related to stuff that they're doing. Like I like giving this example of like if you're applying to like say Twilio. Twilio has a public API that you can use. Build some like mini project using their API, and then mention that on your application, in your cover letter, or wherever. And stuff like that, where like you're saying like you can kind of like show, hey, I already know about the tech you guys are using or the tech you guys are building. um can I, that could be another way to like present yourself, get in there, because you're already doing the work.
Yeah, I think when I did 100 days of code last year, I made a couple of days. I worked on building these like strike buttons, and I had tweeted it out. And now that I work at Strike, I have access to their Slack, and I like searched the Slack, and I found that the CEO posted my tweet in their Slack, so they already knew who I was. Um, so I might have this job because I made those two tweets, or those that probably helped me get the interview, because they saw that I already built stuff using their like secret API that it's not even public. I just found it by going on their page and looking at the network traffic and seeing if I could like use it. And uh, I could. They had a couple open endpoints. So yeah, you never know who's gonna see what you're like
Yeah.
tweeting or posting on LinkedIn or blogging about or whatever.
That's awesome. Next question here is, technical questions in whiteboarding are something that I'm not confident about. How should I prepare for them?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like, for me, repetition. has helped quite a lot. Just like looking at different problems, trying them over and over again until like something kind of sticks. I look around at like different blog posts, at different like videos, and try to see like how like different people kind of explain them to see if like there's a specific way that someone explains it that makes it click for me a little bit better. Um, Another thing is like one of the things that I did at one point was like I would try to do like sort of a simple kind of like page structure algorithm type question, and then try to see if I can like teach it to someone else. Because like if you can take something, try it, and then teach it to someone else, that will like really help you understand like the like some of the deeper you know concepts underneath it. Like around when I first like finished my boot camp, I was giving like an intro to React workshop to a couple of people on this like webinar, and I remember before doing it, I was like, oh, there's like a lot of like underlying things within React that I have to explain for people to like really get this. So I need to go and understand that myself, and that you can apply that to like anything really, um, like if you're learning about manipulating strings, like what are the different methods that you can use to do that, manipulating arrays, working with arrays, what are those things, how can I explain what these specific things do, what are the use cases for all these things. And when you're breaking things down in that way to like try and teach someone, you're relearning it yourself, you're sort of like just reinforcing that knowledge. And yeah, that's what I found that like is really helpful for me.
Excellent. All right. That's a great tip. And then you said you're active on Twitter with documenting your new skills. Does this mean that you don't document on LinkedIn?
um I do, which is probably not as often as I do on Twitter. Um, so, I mean, I have thoughts about LinkedIn, and I won't go into those here. But so, I mean, on LinkedIn, I'll every once in a while, like a lot of the stuff that I might post on Twitter, like I'll usually post it there first, and then if I really like it or if it's like really getting um, if people are finding it helpful, I'll like cross post it on LinkedIn as well. Like I used to do this thing like when Twitter first introduced like their stories or their fleets. I would like for 30 seconds try to like record myself doing one small thing in JavaScript and share that. And people liked it. So I started cross posting that on LinkedIn as well. So, I mean, the more places you can put your stuff up, the better it is for you really, because you're hitting multiple audiences that way. For Twitter, the audience that I'm usually hitting are like people who could potentially be my coworkers and be able to vouch for me at their companies. At LinkedIn, the audience might be a mix of that and like hiring managers and that type of thing. So you just have to like I think look at the content you're creating or sharing and who the audience could potentially be and kind of like cater to that. So I think that's why a lot of the times probably some things that I have on Twitter I might not post on LinkedIn because I might alter a little bit just for the purposes of like I guess being more attractive to like a hiring manager or something.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good point on the audience that you're going to reach, Twitter versus LinkedIn. Um, and then this question relates to it. Twitter seems to be the best friend for software engineers. This person deleted their Twitter account. How can they rebuild the code, like the code side of Twitter? Like,
Um,
yeah, rebuild their, I guess, their following and their.
yeah, I think the main thing is like go in and follow a bunch of people in tech, people who are sharing things, like the different hashtags, like from the 100 Days of Code or um, JavaScript 30 that Westboss has or whatever, and like look at people who are posting with those hashtags, try to interact with them. Um, People randomly post lists all the time of people you should follow in tech. I have thoughts on those as well, but some of them have pretty good people to follow. And once you follow them, you like as you start like following some people in the tech scene, you'll see like more and more things that they're retweeting or liking. And if you just go in and just like interact, comment, someone might post like an open source project or something that they're working on. Go in, ask a question about it, like, oh, this is really cool. I tried using it, and what kind of inspired you to do this? Like people like being asked questions about stuff they've made. So that's just another way to like interact with people, get to know people. And like the more active you are in just trying to like talk to people about stuff that they're doing, more people will be interested in stuff you're doing too.
And then this person is wondering, when they're documenting new skills, do I absolutely have to have a code snippet, or can I just speak to what I've learned in a post?
So I very rarely have code snippets. I'll usually just kind of like talk about it a little bit. Having code snippets is pretty cool. Like if you want to go, I guess, through that route. And it's definitely useful, especially like if you're making content to kind of like target, I guess, beginners and like help them, learn to code and stuff like that. Um, but if you're more just like, I guess, kind of trying to share your journey and document a little bit, I think just really a little bit of a summary is more than enough. Or like a link to a blog post that might have some code snippets or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that code snippets are like a mandatory thing to have. The thing like with a platform like Twitter is like you just kind of have to experiment around with like different things to see like what works for you, what you're comfortable with sharing and things like that. The key thing really is just to be consistent. Just whatever it is like you end up choosing to do, whether it is like attaching code snippets or not, or sharing blog posts or whatever, just try to have some sort of consistency with it, and just like know that it is slow, it takes some patience, but you do build up a network that way.
Yeah. I do think the algorithms though for like Twitter and or social media platforms surface things with like multimedia in it. So like images or video more than just text.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. If you don't have a huge following, it probably helps if you want people to see it too. It doesn't need to be a code snippet. You can just post a meme. I post memes
Right.
in my posts all the time. Just some kind of like content. I think it will help um, people actually see it, because you might post it and nobody might even see it. And I
Fire
would not
memes will
get
always
this.
get interactions.
I would not get discouraged if you don't get any interactions or if nobody sees it. Just keep posting. Like, who cares if nobody likes it or comments? Like, you never know who's gonna see it. All it takes is one right person at the right time to see it, and you might get a job offer. So just keep cranking stuff out.
Yeah, one of like the first interviews I had gotten like out of Bootcamp was just some dude who saw me tweet about like learning about GraphQL a little bit, and he was just like, "Hey, we're using GraphQL and we're like looking for people. You want to come by and do an interview?" I'm like, sure. He didn't actually like it, reply to it, or anything. A lot of people will just like see it and not interact with it. So you don't know like who's actually seen it. So I've had like I've gone on interviews where like people that I've never seen interacting with my content have told me that they've seen my content. So it's yeah, you really don't know what's actually going on. Having the like, I guess, is a nice little boost of serotonin, but it's not like the end all be all, I guess.
That's very true. I've experienced the same, where people will tell me to my face sometimes in conversations that they've seen stuff that I've posted, but not necessarily interact with it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I like this one. This next question is saying, I'm currently in an engineering boot camp. I'm concerned about my skill levels going into interviews. What steps would you recommend to build confidence?
Um, for me, when I wanted to like, I guess, build confidence was like a couple of things. Is first is just like try to build different things outside, especially like outside of like what you're doing in boot camp. Um, so like, you know, the things that might be a little bit different on your current portfolio versus like other people will probably be like some of your capstone projects or whatever. But like one thing that I tried to kind of do after bootcamp was like go back to those projects and add like little things on top of it. Um, because like that kind of like lets me sort of look at code I've written before, laugh at it, and then say, okay, I can improve it here and there, and add some more stuff here. And like it also kind of like sends a signal to like, people who are interviewing you that like, you're constantly trying to improve. Like you don't need to think of new stuff all the time. Just like add little things to stuff you've already done. And that's like, I feel like that's like even better than like always trying to like think of something new to practice certain skills in. Because like on the job, when you're actually going to be contributing, you're going to be contributing to code that already exists. Um, So I guess getting confident in like adding features on top of things you've already built is one thing that's been pretty helpful for me. And like another thing that like everybody goes through and like everybody kind of feels at some point is like imposter syndrome. Like, can I really do this? Why did I go to this boot camp? Why am I even interviewing? All that kind of stuff. For me, one thing I started doing, and like this is actually like the basis for some of the stuff we're doing in our startup, is like keeping track of like different wins, like whether they're small, big, or whatever. I started doing that actually like on Twitter. I have like a pinned thread where like whenever I do something that I'm specifically like proud of or whatever, I post that in there so I can easily come back to it later. And over the past like month or so, there have been times where I felt like, after an interview, like, oh, that sucked. I wasn't anywhere near where they wanted me to be. I need to, improve in this or that or whatever. And whenever I'm like kind of feeling down, I sometimes go back on that thread and look at like the different accomplishments I've already done and like kind of compare between like 2 years ago when I didn't know like what a div was to like now, being able to actually, write up a whole web page or different applications and things like that. And like overall, there's always going to be stuff you don't know. So just like being able to kind of live with that and is a big thing that I still struggle with too. But once you're kind of like okay with like knowing that you're gonna not know stuff, um, a lot of the stuff you'll be doing on the job is just Googling things anyway. So you don't need to know everything. I think the main things is really just like understand how to figure out what you need to like solve a problem, um, and just like be sort of like used to creating things that you think of and adding features and things like that.
Yeah, and jumping off of the point where you don't have to know everything, like for me, I recognize this feeling of what steps do you recommend to build confidence? And for me, it was hard to start interviewing because I was afraid I was going to fail at the interviews. And when I started to realize that it's kind of just a normal process of like getting a job to go through interviews and fail them, like people with lots of experience are going to do bad in certain interviews. It's not a judgment of like you can't make it in this industry or anything. It's just like, well, that was an experience and what can I learn from that? um, that might be helpful to also keep in mind.
Yeah, one thing I've seen like some people also say is like try to do interviews at jobs you don't really want just for the experience. Um, because like if it's a job you really, really want, you probably don't want that to be your first time doing a technical interview. So try to like just see how the interviews work at different places. Um, and like even if you don't get too far, you'll like learn different things about what you should do next time. Like the very first interview I did, like with that guy I mentioned from Twitter, I didn't get that job, and it was because like during the technical portion of things, I couldn't explain how certain things in GraphQL were like working under the hood. But like after that, I went and like sort of looked that up, tried to learn that. Like you could take the different things in those interviews that you weren't so great at, look them up, practice them, and then a lot of questions and stuff that come up about technologies in different interviews are going to be repeated in one way or another at different interviews. So like once you've seen a bunch of them, and like if you failed at them once but then looked it up, like it's more likely you won't mess up the next time it comes around because you've already kind of experienced it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Some people might think that's unethical to go and just interview at companies you're not even interested in. But my argument against why it's okay to do that is because the company might convince you to work there. So I don't think you are wasting their time. So um, yeah.
Yeah, we've
But it
talked
is
to
a good,
people where that's happened before.
yeah, it is a good strategy. Just you can it's like warming up to, like, if you got an interview coming up few months out, couple months out. um I try to, like, if I get an interview at a company I really like, I try to push the interview out at least like a month or two if possible, just so I got some time to prepare. That's not always possible, but and then you can try and set up interviews before to like uh prepare. It's like a real practice because you're going to a real interview.
Cool. So this next question here, is Twitter the best platform for posting your work? What are some other platforms that are good as well?
I think it really just depends on like the type, how you share things, or the type of, I guess, audience that you're kind of going for. um, I like Twitter because I've been able to like post like things in like short form. I like the character limit and how like you can in a few sentences kind of like get whole thoughts and ideas out. Like I like the whole like forcing myself to like summarize different things in like shorter possible ways. I think that's one thing that kind of attracted me to Twitter. Um, and then stuff, places like LinkedIn, you could write as much as you want. It could be a whole like essay, and it'll still be posted. But yeah, I think it just depends on like how you're used to sharing things. Um, I don't think any one platform is the best. It'll just be like you just kind of have to try out different platforms and see like what works for you, what doesn't. I mean, aside from Twitter, like places like different blog sites like Medium or Dev.to, even just posting there, like without sharing it on like different social media sites, are like pretty good because there are people who just like um, follow like the different tags on dev.to and see like different articles that are posted there. Or if you're writing about common problems that people have and that they're looking up, like array methods, or um, how to, I don't know, implement authentication in like something. um, Writing about things like that will probably get you some interactions and stuff. And it's really just like, yeah, like looking at what's your goal with when you're sharing on a specific platform. Are you doing it to build a following for like some type of, I don't know, um, course maybe that you're making or whatever it is, or you're just kind of doing it to just document your journey and to have social proof for interviews and things like that. um, and just seeing like what works for you the best among those platforms.
Awesome. This next one is, how do you make a good impression at your first dev job?
So, before I thought I was pretty lucky because before my first dev job, I saw this talk from someone who actually worked at American Express at that time, and it was a talk on like how to effectively do code reviews as a junior engineer, and um, there are specific parts of that I remember that I like enjoy using now. It's like when you start that first job, everything's going to be confusing. Everything's going to be like you might not have seen a gigantic code base like whatever you're saying at that point. Like I went from working in Create React app to seeing this huge React application built with Webpack, and I was just like, what is all this? And like one of the things that is super helpful is just like go and like read people's pull requests, see how they're interacting with the code, see how they're solving different problems. What that does is like makes you more familiar with the code base. It makes you more familiar with the different patterns that exist on the team that people are using, and then just comment on them. It doesn't even have to like be like specific feedback you're giving. You could just say, hey, I really liked how you did this or that or whatever. And like what that does is signal to like other people on your team that like you're going through the code, you're in there, and that you're trying to get like a good context for the stuff that's going on, in the different tickets or whatever that people are doing. So yeah, I feel like that accomplishes both sides of the whole thing of like giving your coworkers confidence that you're going to be in there and trying to figure out how to work with them. Gives you confidence because you're able to start slowly picking up different ways of solving those problems and things like that. And honestly, that's also something you can do like even when you're not on your first job, like go to different like open source projects. You don't even have to like contribute to them. Just like read some of their pull requests, see how they do different things. Um, Try to see how someone implemented a PR and like maybe um, fork the code and just try to re-implement it yourself in the same or similar ways. You don't have to open up a PR yourself unless you did something awesome and you feel you're comfortable with that. You never know. You might get approved or whatever. So um, just really, yeah, reviewing pull requests is like one of the best ways to just like instill that confidence in yourself as well as your teammates.
Do you have any open source projects that you like to work on, or any that you know of that would be good for someone just trying to get started in contributing?
Yeah, I know there's one that people might find helpful in general, protege.dev. They're an open source site that actually has like different junior junior dev positions that I think are mostly remote. So fulfills like two things: gives you another place to look at for jobs, and they also like welcome new devs to like contribute and look at different issues they have to see if you can help out. Um, so that's a pretty good one I like. I have one myself called the Siler Project. It's sort of like a resource of different mental health uh, resources in the United States. That's one of the free things that I do, I guess, and it's open for contributions and stuff like that. So yeah,
You want to post the link in the chat?
yeah, I'll do that.
Awesome.
I think it's also good when new people come in and they update like outdated onboarding documentation. That's like that helps like that'll help you and the team will be happy because it will be easier to onboard the next person.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Okay. So then moving on from a portfolio perspective, should I put all of my projects, small and big, or do you recommend putting 2 or 3, or is there a number of projects that you recommend on a portfolio?
So I think the main thing to remember about portfolios is like someone looking at your portfolio is probably not going to go beyond the first or second project. Um, so I would keep like your best ones kind of like easily accessible at the top. The ones like you're really proud of that are like, I guess, really robust, or if you're like applying for a specific, you know, company and you want them to look at like one specific project that like, you know, like really um, deals directly with that, like link directly to that project itself rather than your portfolio. Um, I think the main thing is to like understand that when you're submitting portfolios in like an application, um, the first thing is like an HR person or a recruiter might just like click it just to see, like, you know, what does it look like? And for them, they're just looking at does it look cool or not. So definitely like making it visually, you know, appealing and having one or two projects that you can like quickly go to without much effort. People are lazy, so make it as easy as possible for them to find those projects. Like put them everywhere, put them like, you know, in like some sort of featured thing on your homepage or whatever. Even in like your GitHub repos, you can like star certain ones, have those be like the first couple ones that you've starred, um, and just like really take just one or two of those and just like figure out how to heavily market those, I guess, and promote them in some way to recruiters and, you know, hiring managers. Um, I think most people will probably, if they look at it, will just look at the first one that they have access to, and some people might look at a second one, and beyond that, it's probably pretty rare you'd get people looking at, you know, anything more beyond that.
So it sounds like you're saying prioritize the order, but you don't worry about removing things. Just don't
Yeah.
expect that people are going to look at them.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. This is again with the Twitter. Should I delete and rebuild my Twitter to focus on tech? My current Twitter isn't NSFW, and I'm not, but it isn't exactly professional.
So that depends, I think. My Twitter is not very professional at all.
Me
I
either.
will I curse a lot. I you know, say things that you might not say in front of an employer or whatever. So it depends, I think, on you as a person. Some people have like alternate accounts where they have like their personal stuff, and then they have like a code account that, you know, they are more professional on or whatever. For me personally, I don't care. I have everything on one account. Um, so yeah, it's really up to like what you're comfortable with. Like like for me, I've had people like tweet at me or DM me and tell me like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be saying these things on Twitter because you're always sharing, you know, uh, code stuff and asking people if they can refer you to jobs. And I would respond with like an FU, like I will post
Yeah.
whatever I want on my Twitter.
Those people are the worst. I hate those people.
But
They try
yeah,
to slide into your DMs and tell you what you should post.
right. But yeah, for me, I have everything in one account. I can't be. I don't have like the patience or mental capacity to like have multiple accounts to keep track of. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
always
same.
thought with like, I know that when I was starting to look for jobs, I wasn't even looking for tech jobs, but I had graduated college and my mom was really worried about like me having a Facebook in general. And I was always saying, you know what, the company is not going to hire me just because I have a Facebook, I probably don't want to work there anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win in that sense. So, yeah. All right, next question. Can you talk a little bit about Whimser? I'm coming to development from the mental health field, and I'm excited about an app that helps with mental health.
Yeah. So Whimser it's sort of a project I had in mind since about like a year ago. It came about when I was sort of like, I guess, starting to take care of like my own mental health a little bit. I was starting to see a therapist, taking care of my own issues and things like that. And one of the things that really helped me out was what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, which has to do a lot with like journaling, challenging your like negative thoughts and understanding why you're having specific thoughts. Um, and I liked a lot of the exercises that, my therapist was giving me for that. And I just like searched online for different apps that, do that sort of thing. And they do exist, but they didn't completely do what I wanted them to do. Um, and I felt like a lot of them kind of just stopped at like being a journaling app or just like segued into being a meditation app or something like that. And what I wanted was something that like could actually give you real insights into your own mental health, give you things that you can like use to collaborate with your therapist on. So that was what brought on the idea of Whimser, where I started building this thing where you could start doing some journaling, some, working on different cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. And at the same time, the data that you collect for yourself, that would be shown to you in like different data visualization metrics, to show you how you're doing over time, give you the ability to share specific things with your therapist. Like we've got plans to actually like integrate in practices, so that like, um, you can share your journey with your therapist as you're going through, help them kind of like figure out what to focus on different sessions. Like one other issue I was having was like a 45-minute session once or twice a month is great, but like I can't go over everything I want to go over. And like I don't always know, I guess, what I want to go over. So it like stuff like that is like aimed at helping both you and your therapist to kind of like figure out what to hone in on, where you need the most help on, things like that. And yeah, we're like 8 people now working on this, and we're planning to incorporate very soon. So hopefully once we have a beta out, we're going to start looking at hopefully investors and things like that. So yeah.
That's
What's your
awesome.
what's your interview process?
So
Since you
I
hired these people.
actually, yeah, I hired like 2 people and did like a sort of little bit of an interview thing with them. What I made them to, I didn't make them reverse the linked list, but I had one person like I gave someone like the Pokemon API, and I was like, can you make me like a very simple Pokédex, just query for like a bunch of your favorite Pokemon. I want to know like the moves they can learn, make sure their picture is there, design it a little bit nicely. Doesn't have to be anything, complex. Just show me that you can hit an API and use that data to make some UI.
Yeah, that's a good challenge for a front end interview. It's kind of similar to what the strike interview that I did was like.
All right. Next question then. If I build a personal portfolio website, what technologies should I use to build it? What are the upcoming trends that could help with differentiation?
So I used to kind of stress over portfolios a lot. Like I had rebuilt mine several times using stuff like Gatsby and like its React framework and things like that, and trying to implement TypeScript or GraphQL. And for your portfolio, um, honestly, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is fine. A no-code builder like Webflow or WordPress is absolutely fine, because the portfolio itself is not what you're showcasing for your skills. It's just the place people go to visually see where your actual projects live. Your focus should be on the projects themselves, solving whatever problems they are solving, whatever, actual technologies you want to use in a setting where like, you have more, like your portfolio is just like querying some data and showing some images and links to some projects, right? There's nothing more than that. You don't need to make it more complex than it needs to be. Just focus on making it look a little bit nice, so people don't think, oh, it's ugly and I want to go away, I don't want to see the rest of it. But in terms of the technology behind your portfolio, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Focus on the technology behind the projects that you're actually showcasing.
Yeah, no need to overcomplicate things. And this next question is very related. How important is it to have a portfolio versus just having your top projects as links on your resume?
So I think having a portfolio is good because like of just, a lot of people I've seen in tech will just like kind of scan your resume a little bit and not really like focus on like if there's links on it, actually clicking those links. I don't know if they would actually do or not. It's more just like a thing that they look at real quick to make sure that like you meet some of the basic qualifications for the role. And the majority of people are not going to like deeply scan your resume. So in those cases, I feel like having that portfolio as like an additional thing that goes with your resume is better, because it takes them directly to something that visually shows them, oh, this person did this project or whatever. Let me go click this and check it out. That's what the portfolio is made for, to like showcase you. A resume, I guess it supposed to is showcase you, but it's really just a bunch of words that people just scan over and make sure it matches their buzzword list, and that's sort of it. So definitely portfolio is a more attractive place to find stuff that you've actually done.
Yeah, it's not necessary though. I don't have one and I never made one. I have a personal site, but I don't have any projects on there. I have a video that I made which is my application for Dev Bootcamp, but
yeah, honestly, for my portfolio, I've never updated it after Bootcamp. So it has all the old stuff that I did way long ago. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't have one either. But yeah, I don't know. I think at a certain point, everyone's going to realize that with a year or two of experience, portfolios aren't the thing that catch people's attention so much as like experience.
It doesn't hurt to have one though.
No,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not 100% necessary for you to have to make one.
All right. This next question is, what were some of the common bootcamp, or what were some of the common projects you saw during your time in your bootcamp?
I guess like the regular like CRUD type apps of like a blog or to-do lists, that type of thing. I think like everyone kind of, almost every portfolio has some type of like basic, create, update, delete type, system for doing whatever. Like how different really is like a to-do app versus a note-taking app versus a grocery list app or whatever. They all like do the same thing at the end of the day. So I feel like, the stuff you do in boot camp is really just so, you get used to doing those operations and like just, able to go in and learn stuff. But to really like take it beyond that, like adding features that's like go beyond just like the regular CRUD functionality is what'll like really help you to stand out with that type of thing. Um, like even like you can even take a to-do app and like make it actually like stand out by like adding like some functionality on top of it, like um, look at like the time or like work with the date and time and see like what are my to-dos specifically for today. Did I finish them? Do they go over to tomorrow? Stuff like that. um, and just like adding stuff on top of it that's just beyond the regular things there.
All right. And then what are your thoughts on mentorship? I sometimes feel like it'd be nice to have a mentor, as it's easy to get lost in the space when you're a beginner developer.
Yeah. So I like to say I've had a lot of mentors. A lot of the people I follow on Twitter, I feel are kind of like mentors for me. I think when a lot of people like look for mentors, they're trying to like say, oh, I need to go find someone, ask them to be my mentor and have them help me go through like the different stuff that I'm doing. Um, you don't have to have someone specifically like that. If you do, that's awesome. That's great. But like on Twitter, I'll randomly ask different questions about stuff that I'm stuck on, stuff that I need help with, different decisions I'm not sure about for like architecting an app or whatever. And people respond, people give advice, and that's one way of getting mentorship. Just like ask little questions here and there. Like when you're engaging with people, other people who share content, like if you're someone who's like consistently sort of commenting and asking them about their stuff, and then you come up with like your own question, they're very likely to respond to you because they've seen you around a lot or whatever. And that's a quick way to get mentorship. It doesn't have to be a fully like actual like mentor mentee relationship. I think a lot of the best advice and best like mentorship times I've had were just like those random talks with people, random like questions that I popped open on Twitter or wherever.
Yeah, good way of viewing that. It doesn't have to be some big formal relationship. Cool. This next question is, I joined a startup and I'm not enjoying it. They're using outdated code methods and the tech lead isn't experienced with the front end. Any recommendations?
Just be open to different opportunities, I guess. A lot of people say like if you go to your first job, you got to stay there for like a year or whatever, just so like you don't look like you're hopping around. I say that's BS. Like if you're in an environment that is not helpful for you, that you're not getting anything out of, that you're not developing in, look for something else. Honestly, like keep that on hand for the paycheck, but like definitely look around for other stuff. Once you have your first sub, it is a little bit easier to get that second one. It'll still take time, especially if it's like hasn't been too long, but like it'll open more doors because like you already have, I guess, that proof that someone hired you already, thought you were good to contribute to their company, even though what actually happened is not ideal. They don't need to know that. And yeah, I mean, just be open to other stuff.
Yeah, you can take PTO to do interviews and stuff too. So if your startup has unlimited PTO, just take advantage of it.
Cool. This one is, what's the best way to start a blog? I really want to make one, but I don't know where to start.
Go to places like dev.to, create an account and write about something. that you've learned. It's really like I feel like a lot of people, you know, that want to start creating content, sharing things online, tend to like overthink it. Um, the thing is, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to like be the most sophisticated blog ever. Just write something and put it out there, and then get feedback, do it again, make it better. Um, like showing progression is better than like waiting and waiting until everything is perfect. Because chances are it won't be perfect, and you might not be satisfied with sharing it for a very, very long time when you could have just been like iterating like in public, I guess. So um, you don't have to create your own website. You know, blogging platforms exist. There's dev.to, Hashnode, a bunch of other stuff. Just go on some of those popular ones, see what people are writing about, see what you want to write about, and write something.
Yeah, just do it. Whoops, we already did that one and I didn't mark it. So when looking at job postings, the qualifications just psych me out. In your opinion, how accurate are all of the qualifications that job postings ask for?
So my first job, I had maybe a little less than half of the qualifications. Um, I think there was some like study done where like if you feel like you have like almost half or close to half the qualifications, you'll probably be a good candidate that they'll consider. Um, you can view like those qualifications as like a wish list for like the ideal person that they would want, but the ideal person never exists. So they'll still, kind of take a look at you if like you have some of the stuff that they're looking for, like if it's a React position and you've worked with JavaScript before, maybe not necessarily React, but you've worked with like maybe Vue or Angular, stuff like that still translates over. So if you have experience that's similar to what they're looking for, that's still a good place to good way to think, okay, how can I apply what I'm looking at, what I'm working with now to what they're working with. And like, yeah, just send in applications, because like the worst that happens is you get a no. And I feel like, and I've seen like people say this before, is like a lot of people reject themselves from a job without allowing the company to actually reject them. And like you never know like what they're actually looking for, like behind the jargon that HR has put up. So just give it a shot.
Yeah, bringing up Steven from who's now working at Google again, he was extreme in this, and he was trying to apply for like 60 jobs per day.
Wow.
And he didn't even like look at what they were looking for. He would apply for every single job opening. And he noticed that sometimes, even if he wasn't remotely qualified for this job, and this was on AngelList, so maybe things were a little bit more flexible, but he would sometimes hear back that, oh, actually, we looked at your resume and you might be a better fit for this other position that we have open right now. So yeah, you've like, if you're remotely close, please apply if you're interested.
Yeah, he took the shotgun blast approach to the extreme. He had some kind of system on AngelList where he would just open it up and he would just like rapid fire. He built like a system to like rapid fire apply to every single job. And he got interviews. So I personally would never use that approach, but
yeah, and he well, I experienced something similar, that I also applied for a job that I felt like I was not qualified for because they were looking for a mid-level developer. But I was just at the point where I was like, someone has to hire me to help me get experience. So I don't know. They're going to train me if they need someone bad enough. And they they did reach back out and they're like, we need someone with more experience for this position, but would you be interested in this other more entry role? And I was like, yes, I would be very interested. So, all right, another question here. If a cover letter isn't required, but there's an option for one, should I write a personal cover letter or just skip it? Wow, can't talk.
So I only write cover letters if I'm like cold applying. Like if it's not a referral, if it's just kind of like something I randomly saw, just decided to apply for. My strategy has always been like if I see a job, I'll go on like their LinkedIn site, see if I have any mutuals with people on engineering and just say hi and try to start a conversation and get a referral. When you do that, you don't have to write a cover letter because you are automatically guaranteed a screening with HR. So I hate writing cover letters, so that's why I do that. And, you know, there are people who are successful with cover letters who write like, you know, tailored ones for every single application. And yeah, I mean, if that works for you, great. But I don't have that patience or time, so I try to get around it just by DMing people.
I only write cover letters if I really like the company. Like I think I wrote a little blurb. I actually applied to Strike, so I usually do the referral route, but Strike tweeted that they are hiring, so I actually sent in an application this time, and I wrote a little, just like one paragraph in the email, not like a whole cover letter. But yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
don't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Like I think the only interview I've had recently that I applied for was for Amazon, and that was I put in a cover letter too. So yeah, I don't know. It worked, I guess, in that case.
I don't think a cover letter is going to hurt you. And yeah, I think you have to have some level of prioritization of know when you want to write a cover letter versus not. But I do know, I will say, and it's not the same at every position, but for when we were looking for people on my team, when I was at the entry level team, we definitely liked it when people wrote cover letters because it told us that they were a little bit more invested in the position.
It's hit or miss though. Some people don't care. So
yeah.
you gotta like look at your time management because you got a lot to do in a day, right? So you gotta figure out you gotta figure out like what are the important things you by just seeing what's working and what's not. Like if you're writing 10 cover letters a day and you don't even get a call back after a month, maybe think about switching up the strategy.
Yep. All right. And maybe I don't know how we're doing on time on your side. We've got maybe like 2 more minutes that we had scheduled. So maybe this could be the last question. Would you hire a bootcamp grad for your company?
Yes. So I have already hired 2. And honestly, I prefer newer developers over senior developers who I'll argue with all day about how to implement certain things. Because especially at the beginning, all I really want to do is just like get stuff out there and then worry about optimizing it later. So what I've found has been better for moving quicker is like a team of like someone more senior, maybe someone more mid-level, and then a junior, rather than a team of 3 seniors, because the whole like figuring out what we want to do or you know, talking like, yeah, you need to figure out like, you know, what's best for your company, what are the different trade-offs of different approaches, but also at some point you need to just do it and, you know, do something for your customers, because that's who is actually more important, not, you know, how you structure your code or like what you want to put on your resume later. So yeah, I mean, I've like the person who I've brought on as an intern, He had just graduated a boot camp like a couple weeks before, working with us, and I think he's like contributed almost as much as I have already to the code base. So I was very happy, with what he was able to do. Like, I've already seen firsthand, like a lot of, bootcamp grads who can do the work. So I'm definitely open to that. So once we get funding, y'all should apply.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
Well,
good.
that worked
Thanks.
out perfectly because there are no more questions here in the list anyway.